Hey guys, welcome back. Well, it's the end of the day. We've been working all day and I forgot to film anything, but let me tell you where we're at and what's next. We got good news, great news, and a little bit of bad news, but it's mostly good. So, as we can see, we got the car sitting mostly level and we got the big tires on. For the first time ever, the car is sitting on its own weight on the suspension. Every time I've ever put these big tires on, when I set the car down, it just sat on the fender liners. And for the first time ever, it's actually sitting on its own weight. And let me tell you where we're at. So we have the pinch welds at 5 inches everywhere. Front, back, left, right. One of them's at like 4 7/8, but it's basically a 5-inch pinch weld. So here's the front tires. And you can see the backs look a little closer. But we have no rake. And I think when we drop the front, say we do a 1/2 inch of rake, that'll get the fender gaps to be about the same. But check this out. We got these gigantic 26-inch tall, quote-unquote 10-inch wide, but they measure a foot wide slicks. Sorry, there's junk in the shop. It's hard to get a good shot of these. But check that out. Let's see, maybe I can hold that. Check that out. Pretty awesome. So we managed to get the tires centered up in the fender liner, or in the fender well, because since we were going to cut it, we could change this. So they're equal now. We kept the same shape. It still goes down straight right there, but we got a 1-inch gap all the way around the tire now. Well, except for there. We still got to deal with that. So way up inside the fender, you would think it's curved, like over here it's curved, but then they just put a flat spot right in the top. And where you can see it obviously it's touching the hairs of the tire right there. So we got to cut that and fix it, and it's going to suck. But we'll worry about that like tomorrow or the next day. But good progress. Let's see, I can show you what it looks like from back here. A bunch of welders in the way, but something like that. It looks pretty good. I wish I could get a good side view, but the shop's not really big enough. So, fantastic. We did a lot of work to get to this point. Actually, let me show you. All of this metal had to come out of the fender wells, and we're still not done because we still showed that 1/2 inch spot. But all of this, there's a lot of metal there. That is a ton of stuff. All that came out of the fender wells. Nowhere else, just the fender wells. And like I said, we're not done. So, plus all that came out of the rear parcel shelf area. So, taking some weight out of the car. And we're getting there. However, we have a setback. This is just part of being human and making mistakes. So, a while back, we tried to do the upper control arms to fix the camber, but we figured out that wasn't going to work, because when you try to move the top of the upper A-arm out, it runs out of travel on the axle. But there's plenty of room to move the lower control arm in. So we did that, and we measured and figured out what we needed, put it on the car, and we screwed up, and basically, after rolling the car forward and backwards to get the suspension to settle, we were actually off. And that sucks, but it was only off like 1/2 degree, not really the end of the world. And I had the camber adjusters in the neutral spot. So I knew, I'm like, oh, 1/2 degree, I can fix that. Well, that was a mistake, but unfortunately that's not the only mistake. We also didn't have the car at ride height. Now, I'm kind of an amateur when it comes to all this suspension planning stuff. This is actually the first time I've ever even installed coilovers on a car. So, I'm going to give myself a little slack. But anyway, we didn't have the ride height correct. And I kind of knew that, but for some reason it didn't click that I had to deal with that problem. And we ended up doing the lower control arm work, which actually took like a day or two to complete. And the bad news is we got to redo it all because we still have a problem. So let me show you where we're at. So right now the car's sitting at ride height, and I have the camber adjusters in the middle. And this one's showing 1.77 degrees. And if we come over here, this one's at 1.34 degrees. Now that's what the adjuster's in the neutral, like middle position. When I max them out, it pulls that 1.3 down to 0.5. So you got almost a degree that I was able to take out with the adjuster, just going from neutral to maxed out. But that doesn't get us to 0. That only gets that wheel to 0.5. This wheel over here, it only pulls it back to 0.84. So unfortunately, neither one of these are good. That sucks. but we know how to fix it. The good news is we know what the process is. We got all the tools here. We got the welder. We've already done this before, so we basically know what we're in for. We could probably do both of them in the same day now. So basically that's probably tomorrow's project, is get these lower control arms round 2. But let me show you how we figured out where we're at now. Okay, so this is an Excel sheet I made, and it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So I was able to go in here and type in like pinch weld adjustments and the tire OD, and this is from 949 Racing. They say don't go lower than 4-inch pinch weld with a 22.8-inch tire. And you do the math, and I said, okay, well, I actually have 22-inch tall street tires. They're a little bit shorter than 22.8. It's a difference of 0.8 on the diameter, so technically that's 0.4 radius. So with the 22-inch tall tire, I could safely go down to a 3.6 pinch weld. And that's what we did. We lowered the car until we got it down to 3.6. In fact, I actually was going to lower it to 3.5, but we ended up at 3.6 basically. So I was like, okay, that's the lowest setting that they would recommend, you know? Okay, cool. So then we said, what if we did a big tire? What would that put us at? And it calculates that your pinch weld would end up at a 5.6 instead of a 3.6 because the tire is 4 inches bigger on the diameter, which is 2 inches bigger on the radius. And then I can type in the desired rake and it tells you where to set the front. So we have this sheet and it gives us a pretty good idea of how to set the car up. So what we did was we had to say, okay, with a 3.6 in the front, we needed the front at like a 5.35, and this is with the small tires. We needed the back at a 3.6 and the front at like a 5.3. And that seems retarded because the back's super low and the front's high, but you have to do this because when you put the big tires on, it's going to lift it. So basically I had to set the suspension up to where it looks really bad, the back's really low, knowing that when you put the big tires on, it's going to fix it. So we did that after we'd already did the control arms. And that's when we found out we had another camber problem, which I just measured it again, but we discovered once we lowered it, I could just look at the tire and go, uh-oh, there's a lot of camber. You know, we knew that we had made a mistake. So this is kind of how we decided to do the math. So anyway, that's where we're at. We're pretty happy with the fitment. It looks badass. This is kind of the look I was hoping for. Wish I could back up enough to give you guys a good shot, but the car is sitting pretty close to level. Maybe this is about the best shot I'm going to be able to get. That's what it looks like. Let me try doing a different zoom level. Whoops, wrong one. That zoom level. That's how the car looks. I'm pretty happy with the look. It looks pretty much exactly how I was hoping. And we're going to lower the front a touch more, which will give it the rake and get that front fender gap down a little bit. So it's going to look nice. I'm going to be happy with this. And like I said, we're going to do the camber next, or modifying all those control arms again. Kind of lame, but part of it. We got to get this right. It's important. We're doing all this work for a reason. I've actually, funny enough, I've had people ask me, one guy in particular, he's like, oh, do you think the car's going to be able to turn that big of a tire? And it's a funny thought, but it's kind of the point. I was telling him, I was like, well, I don't know if it will, but here's the thing. As long as I've ever owned the car, it's always been traction limited. I've never had enough tire. I've always had more engine and power and torque, not enough traction. So if it turns out that, you know, I have more grip than I need, it's a good problem to have. It means I can actually safely up the power and put it down, which would be awesome. It's probably obvious, but, you know, hey, it'd be a good problem to have. Also, I just love the look, having big fat tires on the car. And when we get this camber fixed, it's going to look even better, because that's just, to me, when you see a fast car, that's one of the traits. You see the tires are dead straight and they look awesome like this. So anyway, that's going to be our update for now. Like I said, we'll get on the control arms tomorrow, try to get that camber squared away. And the next part after that is that sheet metal. Like we said, both of them, this is the other side. They both have that flat in the top. You can see this one has it too. Lame, more work. And that bulge comes around to this area. So we're starting to, we got some decisions to make if we're going to start cutting all this metal out too. I kind of want to, just to get it out of the way. But if we do cut it out, that means we probably got to put something back. So it's one of the reasons we haven't done it. So we'll think about that. That'll be a decision we'll make tomorrow. But, you know, I'm happy with where we're at. This is good progress, and like I said, this is a milestone. We got the car sitting on the big tires for the first time ever, with actually on the suspension. So that's badass. And guess that's it for now. But hopefully, I'll have those fenders straightened out and the camber next. Anyway, y'all take it easy.